Hello everyone, I'm Edmundo Werna and I prepared this presentation together with my colleague Andres Mella. I thank the Green Economics Institute for the opportunity to address you. You are aware of the environmental and sustainability problems of cities and towns, particularly those related to the built environment. I would like to highlight in the presentation that cities and towns will not be sustainable if the livelihoods of their inhabitants are not addressed. Job creation and good working conditions are fundamental requisites for the sustainability of human settlements. Some questions to bear in mind in my presentation. First, who does and will do the work necessary to improve the environmental conditions in cities and towns, and in particular to upgrade the built environment? Second, are there enough enterprises and workers with the necessary knowledge and skills? Are working conditions adequate? And third, how to combine the improvements of the built environment with employment creation and good working conditions. I will now present a series of slides and will comment on each one of them. This slide shows the structure of the presentation. First, I will give you background on the decent work agenda. Following, the skills and training needs related to the upgrading of or the greening of the built environment. This is followed by the views from the workers, some ideas that the workers have given regarding the skills and training needs. Following, why enterprises should invest in greening the built environment. Next, employment creation, and finally the other aspects of decent work in the greening of the built environment, in addition to employment creation and enterprise development. These other aspects, as I will mention, relate to workers' rights, social protection, and social dialogue. There is a fundamental relation between labor and technological change. The greening of the economy entails technological change, therefore it is important to understand its labor aspects. As a background, this slide gives a general view of the decent work agenda used by the ILO. I will be referring to these components throughout the presentation. Basically, the decent work agenda has the four components which are shown in the slides: rights at work, employment generation, social protection, and social dialogue. Now, in terms of skills for improving the built environment, there are lots of needs and at the same time opportunities. First, to give some examples related to energy provision, here are some occupations needed for wind, solar, and hydro energy generation related to equipment manufacture, construction, installation, maintenance, and cross-cutting activities. Here are some examples related to biothermal and bioenergy and some cross-sectoral occupations. For buildings, here are some examples of occupations related both to energy conservation and to improvement on the level of renewable energy. therefore including insulation, heating and cooling, conservation of electricity and of water. More occupations in the sector of buildings related to planning, monitoring, investments, manufacturing, and related issues. Waste management and recycling is also an important sector for greening the built environment. As this slide shows, many of the recycling and waste management related jobs cannot be considered green because they do not match the basic requirements of decent work. There are skills shortage due to low reputation and low attractiveness of the sector. Recycling practices are often environmentally harmful. The most important issue from a sustainable development and poverty reduction perspective is the opportunity to upgrade jobs in the sector. Upgrading is both possible and a good example of synergy between the pillars of sustainable development. Skills development programs for material handling and occupational safety and health are necessary. The International Labour Office carried out a study on skills needs to green a number of sectors related to the built environment. The previous data are from such studies. They also include statements from the workers themselves, which are interesting to share with you. This slide shows the views of the workers from the energy sector. So basically, they said that renewable energy workers are organized across different trade union federations, sometimes utilities, metal, construction, or energy. Therefore, there is a need for an integrated approach. They call for ambitious emission reduction targets at international level and to recognize job creation potential in renewable energy. They recognize the importance of skills for just transitions. They raise the awareness among members through conferences, training courses, and they think it's important to engage in social dialogue, roundtables, tripartite training systems, among others. Now, the views of the workers in the building sector. Some workers' organizations are actively involved in advocacy for green building, training responses, and jointly with employers' organizations on updating curricula in tripartite training systems. Identified barriers for skills training include insufficient government investment and financial support for green building, and that regulation is not sufficiently demanding. Skills bottlenecks include holistic assessment of houses, skills across building disciplines, country-specific skills gaps, use of renewable energy, building material, and design. From 5 to 50% of workers in construction are migrants, and they are often low-skilled, involved in building and in construction, less in installation, and they have difficulty to acquire skills, and also they face other decent work deficits, which are not specific to green building but also include green building. This slide shows recommendations related to skills training. First, use green buildings skills as an instrument to drive practice forward. Use skills interventions to address barriers, high costs, information asymmetries, awareness raising, enforcement, and urban planning. Highlight importance of skills to minimize cost premium for green building. Provide skills for policymakers in designing incentives focus on migrants as a vulnerable group in need of training interventions, strengthen social dialogue in designing of skills interventions. There are, of course, ethical and ecological cases for investing in greening the built environment. In addition, at least in the economic order that we live today, enterprises need to have an economic interest in order to invest in greening the built environment. The next slides will comment on the business case. There are opportunities for investing in greening the built environment. Green buildings present an excellent opportunity for business to develop new products and services that cost effectively reduce the energy burden on consumers, countries, and climate. This market could be worth between 0.9 trillion and 1.3 trillion US dollars. There is a growing demand for green buildings and other products and services related to the built environment. There are specific financing mechanisms that can be used for greening the built environment. And as this is a relatively new field, there are potential first mover advantages for companies. But there are also some challenges that need to be addressed. First, the lack of understanding and knowledge from the part of a number of entrepreneurs, lack of motivation, market risks. The timing and pace of rising demand for energy efficiency is uncertain and poses the most significant risk for market entrants. Operational risks. Widespread lack of personal and corporate know-how in the market and general reluctance to innovate. So, continuing on challenges, a number of professionals tend to underestimate the contribution of the built environment to climate change and overestimate the cost of saving energy. Know-how and experience are lacking in professions related to the built environment. Lack of leadership on building sustainability. Some recommendations: through right financial mechanisms and relationships, make energy more valued by those involved in the development, operation, and use of buildings, and stimulate investment in energy efficiency. Adopt a holistic design approach from city level to individual buildings. Influence behavioral change through mobilization campaigns, incentives, training, and education. Get the energy price right so that more efficiency investments become profitable. Focus on technical assistance and training. Use demonstration projects and information to build trust. Promote financial assistance or funding mechanisms. Combine regulatory measures such as mandatory audits with incentives such as subsidies or awards. Mainstream monitoring and evaluation practices. Focus on institutionalization, such as establish energy agencies independent of utilities, and adapt to local circumstances including climate and culture. Now I will present some data that shows how the greening of the built environment generates jobs. It is generally accepted that every 1 million US dollars invested in building retrofits would create 10 to 14 direct jobs and 3 to 4 indirect jobs. In the USA, green construction supported 2.4 million jobs between years 2000 and 2008. Projected to grow up to 7.9 million between 2009 and 2013. Another study suggests that if 40% of the building stock is renovated by 2020, it would lead to 6,250,000 jobs over a period of 10 years. This slide shows data on other countries. In France, partial retrofitting activities in building accounted for 9,700 jobs in operations and 7,150 jobs related material production, growing to 21,000 and 15,000 by 2012. An example from Germany shows a large-scale retrofitting project that led to around 140,000 new or saved jobs. A study of 10 new European Union member states projected that 50,000 to 185,000 jobs would be created by retrofitting existing residential building stock. So continuing with data, in South Africa, a project introducing energy efficiency in buildings provided 1,000 permanent and 1,500 temporary jobs in 2010. The U.S. Department of Energy estimates that adopting standards for washing machines, water heaters, and fluorescent lamps alone would create 1,200,000 jobs by 2020. In India, the introduction of fuel-efficient biomass cooking stoves in 9 million households could create 150,000 jobs. In Hungary, a study demonstrated that a large-scale renovation program could create up to 131,000 net new jobs by 2020. These are just a few examples which illustrate how the greening of the built environment can generate employment, which in its turn has multiplier effects on poverty alleviation and local economic development. The labor aspects of greening the built environment are not only related to employment creation and the training of enterprises. The final part of the presentation is about other aspects of the decent worker agenda: workers' rights, social dialogue, and social protection. Some challenges related to these aspects of the decent work agenda in relation to the built environment include the points in the slide: instability of work in many sectors, fluctuation in demand, in contracting, and the project base of many initiatives, casual and informal work, and the existence of barriers to training and skills development. In terms of occupational safety and health, construction workers are 3 to 4 times more likely than other workers to die from accidents at work in developed countries and 3 to 6 times more in developing countries. An estimated 95% of serious accidents involve workers employed by subcontractors. Precarious contracts lead to long working hours. Lack of access to training leads to unprepared and risky exposure to dangerous working environment. And construction workers with temporary contracts are 3 times more likely to suffer occupational accidents than permanent ones. In terms of social protection, there is lack of social security coverage for temporary workers, health care, holiday pay, unemployment, and retirement benefits. In terms of workers' rights, casual, informal workers have unclear rights and may enjoy less protection under the law than their permanent formal counterparts. Migrant workers are especially prone to exploitation, and in terms of social dialogue, a vast majority of temporary, casual, informal, and unemployed workers find it difficult to organize and engage in social dialogue. In sum, It is also important to address all these decent worker issues in order to green the built environment in cities and towns. Many of the issues highlighted in this conference are somehow related to labor, from construction to the built environment to mega cities, as well as overall environmental problems and inequality in society. This presentation has included material related to such issues from the perspective of labor. So we come to a conclusion of this presentation. To reiterate, cities and towns will not be sustainable if the livelihoods of the inhabitants are not addressed. Job creation and good working conditions are fundamental for the sustainability of human settlements. Thank you very much for your attention.